this episode, I meet National Gallery curator Betsy Wiseman to discuss the topsy-turvy majesty of the Drunken Silenus supported by Satyrs. Betsy, I really adore this picture.
As do I.
I think it's phenomenal. And I guess before we get stuck into, what it represents and so on, there is a question mark about who actually painted it, because to the layman, it looks like a Rubens, 17th century Rubens. But that's probably not quite what we're looking at.
Right. It is definitely Rubensian in that sense that we understand of being just full of life, full of flesh, full of joie de vivre. But Rubens, as we know, operated an enormous workshop that enabled him to meet all the commissions that he received. And one of the confusing things is that it wasn't just a case of this artist or that artist. It was this artist and perhaps that artist, and maybe this person did something as well. So we think Van Dyck might have been responsible for the figures, possibly. Maybe Rubens had a few brush strokes in there. And the still life elements of these wonderful juicy grapes in the foreground and the fruits dangling from the tree, we think might have been done by another artist, Franz Schneider.
You look at this and you see this wonderfully in places blurred, inebriated, painted scene in which clearly this is some sort of party that's gone very, very well, and it's dominated by the fleshy presence of this naked old bloke in the middle. Who is he?
It's Silenus, who was the friend and companion of Bacchus, the god of wine, and from some things that I've read, I think taught Bacchus how to drink. So Silenus really knew how to enjoy himself. Here we have someone who is very full of life, very full of wine, and just showing the pleasures of abundance. I mean, that flesh of his torso, you can imagine it. It's so beautifully rendered. You feel it might be slightly sweaty. It's loose. It's almost overflowing onto the arm of the satyr who's supporting him.
It's wobbling before our eyes, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I love the sort of blurred execution of the figures gives you that sense of wobbling flesh that you can't quite focus on. Or perhaps it's because you've had too many glasses of wine that you can't quite focus on these figures. But this is, I have to say, this is a happy drunk. This is not, something that's going to end badly. He's just going to fall into bed laughing at the end of this, I think.
Do we know much? I mean, clearly some of the followers just augment and enhance that atmosphere of inebriation.
I think he just had a band of satyrs and bacchantes that accompanied him. There's a beautiful young blonde and then an older bacchante who's clearly been around the block a few times.
How significant is it that you can't really imagine, at least I can't think of, high Renaissance painters who want to examine with such interest and observation that full fleshy torso of an old man?
No, and I think Van Dyck or Rubens or whoever painted this wonderful thing, he's very much a human, and I think something that the viewer can relate to a little more directly. And I think that is one of the very important qualities of the Baroque versus the Renaissance.